we are peoples from diverse regions, territories, social movements, collectives, and organizations from more than 100 countries and diverse indigenous peoples gathered in Kandy, Sri Lanka for the third Nyéléni Global Forum. Together, we have woven our struggles into a fabric of convergence and built a movement of movements for systemic transformation. I'm Maddie.
I'm Rav.
And I just read the beginning 2 paragraphs of the Kandy Declaration of the Nyéléni International Movement for Food Sovereignty. Today, we will share our experience at the third Nyéléni Forum, a bit about the process, some of our key takeaways, all hoping to show you why we believe Nyéléni plays an important role in achieving food sovereignty for all. And we also wanted to share parts of the Kandy Declaration, which just came out about 10 days ago and is the first tangible outcome of the third Nyéléni Forum. We'll be reading some excerpts of the Declaration at different points of the presentation.
Okay, so if you're wondering what Nyéléni is, it is a global process of convergence, which is basically bringing together of different people, sectors, and social movements where food sovereignty is shared as a vision, used as a practice or tool, and seen as a rallying cry. The NFU has been part of the Nyéléni process since 2007 and also active in the work and space between the 3 big forums of 2007, 2015, and 2025. You should ideally see those 3 different declarations on the screen. And we sat on regional coordinations, drafting committees, and represented through our membership in La Via Campesina. The third forum just happened in Sri Lanka in September, not too long ago, and we actually had 5 NFU members attend, all of which are here. And I first wanted to have a huge round of appreciation and gratitude for all the fine folks and the work and care that they brought to the forums. And you know, we all really showed up there. So I'm going to introduce them because I think it's really important that we know who these people are. I'm kind of volunteering them, but you can approach any of us later and chat with us. So it was myself, Maddie, Brian. Brian's over there. And Celeste, somewhere, and Jesse. Where is Jesse? Jesse's over there. So the 5 of us were there, and as Nettie mentioned, La Via Campesina brought the concept of food sovereignty forward to combat and inspire, and the word sovereignty doesn't often translate to cultures where the concept of sovereignty in, kings and queens never has really existed. So the term is alive, it's not fixed, and speaks more to the vision of determining our own food systems.
The Nyéléni process has a shared vision that all gathered work towards a people's economy and democracy, promotes peace and international solidarity, advance food sovereignty and agroecology, defend land and territories, ensure health for all, and achieve climate justice and energy sovereignty. It is where a strategy for achieving food sovereignty is co-created together. It is where international solidarity is learned, practiced, and uplifted. It is a gathering of grassroots forces committed to building a world beyond capitalism, colonialism, patriarchy, racism, and fascism. The third Nyéléni Forum for Food Sovereignty, held this past September, was focused on systems transformation. Our rallying cry, systems transformation now and forever. So why was a third forum convened? Why now? Well, we were trying to describe all of our interlocking crises ourselves, and then we realized we already did that in the declaration. So we're going to read just a few excerpts in bullet point form that speak to our shared struggle. And what we mean by that is the struggle we all experience from our different contexts, because we are oppressed by the same forces. It will look different, but we are in this struggle together. So what that looks like right now Capitalism and imperialism are scoring every corner of Mother Earth and nature, converting our ecosystems, biodiversity, and commons into commodities to be consumed and discarded, while devastating our communities and peoples. We are facing multiple crises related to food, health, climate, and biodiversity. Corporate-driven mining, monoculture, and extractivist operations promoted by institutions like the international financial institutions, the World Bank, the IMF, the WTO. New colonial frontiers mean growing financialization of our territories, the extractivism and resource grabbing of lands, oceans, and rare earths, displacing communities in both rural and urban areas. Agro-industrial models systemically undermines our right to food and health through monocultures, industrial aquaculture, pollution, so-called blue foods, GMOs and GEOs, agrotoxins, chemical fertilizers, and concentrated animal feeding operations. The increasing consumption of ultra-processed products have fueled global pandemics of non-communicable diseases. Corporate technologies advance at unprecedented speed. New forms of oppression, occupation, and control emerge in the form of genetic modification, digitalization, commercialization, and financialization, affecting every aspect of our daily lives. Artificial intelligence tools provide new instruments for these threats and persisting problems of colonialism, which show up in our wars, our genocides, and our armed conflicts. Use of prohibited weapons, hunger, rape, and the destruction of the health system, while all contaminating the environment. Our territories here in Canada and Turtle Island are being used as testing grounds for transnational military and technology corporations. Conservatism, fascism, far-right ideology, racism, casteism, classism, xenophobia, misogyny, LGBTQA+ phobia, anti-worker, anti-blackness, anti-Muslim, anti-Arab, anti-indigeneity, militarism, and climate denialism are all on the rise. These are supported by corporate media and some state-run media outlets that spread disinformation, building false narratives, and hijacking and appropriating progressive language to push privatization, deregulation, intolerance, and various forms of supremacy, discrimination, and violence. Hate towards minorities and xenophobia against migrants aim to divide and rule us by turning the richness of our diverse cultures, bodies, languages, and beliefs into tools for rejection, deportation, discrimination, oppression, and exploitation. In many sectors, from poverty wages to precarious conditions of systemic violations of their rights, we affirm the rights of workers, including migrant workers and workers who are particularly vulnerable, whose labor cares for our societies, but suffer low wages, unsafe housing, deportation threats, and systemic injustices. What you have heard is just a portion of what our shared struggle looks like right now. Your experience of farming under capitalism, colonialism, and other forms of oppression may look different from that of a farmer from Sri Lanka, as mine certainly does, but we struggle together under the same forces for the same goal.
So in the past, the Nyéléni process and the two prior forums were mainly spaces just for food folks, including farmers, fish folk, pastoralists, farm workers, and advocates. Something that was interesting is at the starting of the beginning of the reconvening of this Nyéléni, the goal was to broaden out who was invited into the space to build a systemic and cross-sectoral analysis. In the declaration, it lists all of the different groups that are here. I'm just going to highlight a few, but please go access that and read all of the amazing people that were there, because it really does take a lot of people to do this work. So from the declaration, we are peasants, landless agricultural workers and farmers, family farmers, artisanal fishers, fisher peoples, and shellfish harvesters from rivers, lakes, mangroves, and seas, mobile pastoralists and indigenous nomads, indigenous peoples from land, coastal, and ravine communities, forest dwellers and peoples, hunters and gatherers, Afro-descendants, anti-caste and racial justice activists, feminist and women's rights activists, youth and intergenerational activists, gender and sexually diverse peoples, differently abled peoples, artists, interpreters and translators, urban poor people, food system and migrant workers, trade unions, consumers, human rights, social, economic, and climate justice movements, advocates for social medicine, collective health, and the right to health for all, social solidarity economy actors, researchers and scholar activists, representatives from Solidarity, Philanthropy, and other civil society organizations. Thank you for sitting through that, but we really felt like it was important for us to take time and space to read directly from the declaration, to share the shared struggles and the folks that were there, because those were really two foundational pieces to this work. So at this forum, there were over 800 people from more than 100 countries on the screen. If it's still on the right, yeah, it's still on the right picture. This was the North American delegation, but overall at the forum, there were 700 political delegates, over 100 academics, philanthropy, volunteers, and some staff, and over 70 translators. There were regions that were created, and each region had a delegation. So the regions were North America, which included Canada and the United States, Near East and North Africa, Latin America and the Caribbean, Europe and Central Asia, and Africa and Asia Pacific. And then in addition to the delegates from the regions, there were also international coalitions and networks, part of different movements that were invited. And these were Friends of the Earth International, the World March of Women, RIPUS, I still don't know how to say the acronym, People's Health Movement, International Indian Treaty Council, International FIMARC, World Forum of Fisher Peoples, and La Via Campesina. And then I'll just quickly mention that there were also allied academics and funders present who were specifically asked to attend, so the movement could direct them and talk directly to them, and just share information on how they can show solidarity and support this work. Do you want to go?
So the declaration also speaks to the process that led up to the forum. And in short, we had 3 years of consultations that included hundreds of folks from the sectors listed earlier who came together, who built a common contextual analysis. So spent time sharing story and context. What does the struggle look like in my world? And together we shared that and then begin to analyze those and build alignment. And so the first kind of draft of what that would become was called a Common Political Action Agenda. And this will be the second outcome of the Nyéléni Forum. It's still in draft form. It's almost ready to be pushed out into the world. And so that was kind of drafted in 2 iterations and actually came to the forum, and we worked on it in live time. So that's what a little bit of what we actually did when we were together. The forum took place in beautiful Sri Lanka in a lovely, heartwarming, friendly city called Kandy. Tropical mountains, warm days, cool nights, small-scale farm fields and food crops everywhere, made for an incredible setting. We were hosted by the National Institute of Cooperative Development, which serves the co-op sector to develop knowledge and skills of people, offer courses and workshops, maintenance of the cooperative data systems, and works collaboratively with local and global cooperative co-ops. And I think what's also really important, I may get emotional because we had such an incredible experience being hosted in Sri Lanka. Oh, I can go. Okay.
Every time Maddie and I talk about this, we always cry. It was really, it was a lot. So the Sri Lankan hosts included the steering committee, the institute staff. There was a whole group of local community volunteers and service workers and just general Kandy citizens that completely opened their hearts and homes to us. They were so gracious. We can't begin to express our gratitude for them. And it's really interesting because Sri Lanka, if you're not familiar with it, is in a really critical moment in its political history. And it was a really interesting spot to have a forum like this. So I think we'll probably talk about some of our big takeaways. There's a couple that we wanted to highlight. So the first one is this concept of tending to the process. So what this looks like from our perspective is continuing to learn how to practice international solidarity. As farmers and food folks from Canada and Turtle Island, we are very, very close to some of the worst of the worst, from mining corporations to the Canadian military. Our proximity to power creates a responsibility, and showing accountability to that responsibility is something we observed that our delegation unfortunately really struggled with at the forum.
We believe that part of the specific work we need to do as the peoples of this land in order to practice international solidarity is to build a collective practice of interrogating our internalized imperialism. How do we become aware of superiority, of individualism, of isolationism, and isolationist nationalism? And then how do we practice something different together? Another takeaway in tending to the process is ensuring full access to all Nyéléni spaces, which includes making sure everyone can be understood in their language of origin, language justice. I'm gonna get emotional again. There's 70 translators working 14-hour days, responsible for 18 different languages, many which had their own dialects. We are so grateful to the Kwadi Collective, the international network of translators, who volunteered their time to translate the spaces where systems change is worked on. And like, there's no justice without language justice. Let's just leave it there.
Yeah. Another takeaway and a really big learning moment for me was how our movement spaces are not superior or evolved beyond the oppression that we are aiming to combat. There's still, unfortunately, harassment, burnout, violence, and really deep harm that's caused in spaces like the Global Forum and even within our delegation at the forum. Collective care, which can be really simple, like taking a mug of tea to someone with a sore throat, or supporting a process of conflict mediation when harm is being caused, has to be practiced together. The forum was structured in ways that made taking care very challenging, and balancing the responsibility for the exceptional opportunity we were in with the care of our body, spirits, and minds. We need to do this work, and it was a really hard lesson for us to learn.
So we're being told to wrap up. There's time for dialogue with the panelists and Matthew after this. And so I just want, to share the importance of a convergent space where there's a space where all these folks from all these different sectors are together, when we can represent like the different cogs in the system, and we can kind of move together. And it's long and it's hard and it's important. The presence of art and spirit was really relevant, really present. We had mysticas every day at the beginning and at the end. Delegations from different regions were partnered together. The North American delegation worked with Asia Pacific, and it was stunning. It was true ceremony. And I just want to call out Celeste, who did so much labor and such a big lift. And finally, we want to really offer our final takeaway, which is that in this moment of crisis that we face, we have to unite, and we have to scale out and not go inwards, closing our gates, protecting our nation from the other. If we go in, we maintain the status quo of the nation state, us first, them. When we know here at the NFU, we are far more stronger together.
Thank you, everyone.